It's funny how disaster and destiny can wear the same suit. One moment I was praying my tie wouldn't choke me to death before my brother's vows, and the next I was staring straight into the eyes of the one man I swore I'd never lose myself to again. The universe must have had a twisted sense of humor, seating me shoulder to shoulder with Ryan Bennett, the boy who had been my secret, my heartbreak, my unfinished sentence, and now, apparently, my fellow best man. The church smelled like roses and nervous sweat. Families filled the pews, whispering, snapping photos, laughing too loudly. But all I heard was the quiet thud in my chest when Ryan turned, lips quirking in that way that always looked like he knew something I didn't. I hated that smile. I missed that smile. And in the cruelest irony, I needed that smile more than ever. I told myself I could keep it together, that I could stand there, toast my brother, and go home without unraveling. But fate like Ryan was never kind enough to let me have that kind of control. The day had started too early, the September sun glaring against the wide lawns of my family's estate in North Carolina. My brother, Mark, was marrying the kind of woman who lit up every room she entered, the type of person who deserved a love story with soft beginnings and beautiful endings. Me? I was just trying not to spill champagne on my suit. And then Ryan walked in. The last time I saw him, he had been leaving storming out of my apartment in New York, his duffel bag swinging from his shoulder like punctuation at the end of an argument neither of us knew how to finish. That was 2 years ago. 2 years of silence, failed relationships, and sleepless nights. 2 years of replaying the same damn scene in my head, wondering if I should have run after him. Now he was here, hair a little shorter, jaw a little sharper, but those eyes, God, those eyes were the same. And they found me across the chaos like they had been waiting. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered under my breath. Ryan's smirk widened as he adjusted his cufflinks, deliberately brushing past me. "Miss me, Drew?" I wanted to laugh. I wanted to throw my glass. I wanted to kiss him so badly it hurt. But instead, I just muttered, "Not in the slightest." The rehearsal dinner was worse. Wine loosened everyone else's tongues, but mine only tightened with every glance Ryan shot me across the table. He knew exactly what he was doing, drumming his fingers against his glass, leaning close enough when he passed behind me that his shoulder brushed mine. By the time dessert was served, I felt like I'd been dragged back 2 years back to late nights in my apartment. Whispered jokes, kisses that tasted like confessions we couldn't admit in daylight. Back to the moment I realized I loved him, right before he walked away. I thought I'd buried those feelings. But sitting next to him now, I realized the grave was shallow. "You still drink your whiskey neat?" Ryan said later that night when we ended up at the bar together, away from the laughter and clinking glasses of the families inside. I shot him a look. "And you still can't keep your mouth shut?" He chuckled, but it wasn't mocking, it was soft, almost tired. "You look good, Drew." The words landed like a sucker punch. Because he wasn't wrong, I had worked hard to put myself back together after him. Harder than I wanted to admit. But hearing it from him felt dangerous, like standing too close to the fire. "You don't get to say that," I said, my voice low, sharp. Ryan tilted his head, studying me. "Still mad?" I swallowed, forcing myself not to let the ache in my chest bleed into my voice. "I'm not mad. I'm done." But the lie burned my throat, especially when Ryan leaned closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, smell the cologne I used to bury my face into. "If you were done," he whispered, "you wouldn't be shaking right now." And God help Mayhay was right. The wedding day itself was chaos wrapped in silk ribbons. Mark was nervous, pacing the room, while I tried to keep his best man speech hidden from the prying eyes of bridesmaids. And in every corner, every reflection in the mirror, there was Ryan. We shared glances across the room, unspoken, electric, and I hated how much I wanted him to corner me in some hallway and finish what he started last night. When it was time to stand at the altar, our shoulders brushed as we walked down the aisle. My pulse spiked, my breath hitched. To everyone else, we were just two groomsmen in matching suits. But to me, it felt like standing at the edge of something bigger than vows, bigger than weddings, bigger than all the hurt I had been carrying. When the bride walked in, radiant and glowing, I should have been watching my brother's joy. But my eyes betrayed me, slipping sideways, finding Ryan's. And in that moment, the world shrank until it was just him and me, caught in a memory we never stopped living. If weddings are supposed to be about love, then why the hell did mine feel like a war? The ceremony had ended in applause and happy tears, vows sealed under a cathedral ceiling glowing with stained glass. My brother kissed his new wife, and everyone rose to their feet in cheers. It should have been perfect, and for them it was. But for me, standing there with Ryan's shoulder brushing mine, it felt like a battlefield where silence was the sharpest weapon. When the guests spilled out onto the reception lawn, I tried to lose myself in the crowd. I laughed too loud at jokes, downed champagne too quickly, and hugged relatives I barely remembered. Anything to avoid the gravitational pull that dragged me back to Ryan every single time. But avoiding Ryan was like trying not to breathe. I felt him before I saw him behind me, at my side, across the table. A glance, a smirk, a brush of fingers when we both reached for the wine. My heart wouldn't shut up, thundering like it wanted to leap straight out of my chest and into his hands. The speeches started. I sat stiff at the head table, my glass sweating in my grip. When it was my turn, I forced a smile, unfolding the notes I had crumpled and smoothed a dozen times. My brother Mark, I began, my voice shaking only slightly, has always been the kind of guy who makes people believe in things, in loyalty, in laughter, in ridiculously bad karaoke. Laughter rippled across the room. Good. Keep it light. But more than that, he makes people believe in love. And today, we get to see that in the most beautiful way. I raised my glass, eyes darting across the room only to collide with Ryan's. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't smirking. He was just looking, like he saw every word I wasn't saying. Like he heard the confession stuck in my throat that wasn't about my brother at all. I faltered, just for a second. But in a room this full, a second was a lifetime. To love, I finished quickly, my voice breaking more than I wanted, and to never running out of it. Glasses clinked. Applause. 100 eyes on me. But all I felt were his. Later, under the canopy of fairy lights, Ryan found me. Of course he did. He always did. You almost cried up there, he said softly, sidling up beside me at the bar. I scoffed, draining my glass. You're imagining things. No, Drew, he said, and my name in his voice was enough to unravel every lie I had rehearsed. I know the difference between performance and truth, and that he tapped his chest over his heart. That was truth. I wanted to tell him to shut up, to tell him he didn't get to do this, not after everything. But the words tangled with the ache in my throat, and all I managed was, don't. Ryan leaned closer, his breath brushing my ear. Don't what? Don't remember? Don't want you? My fingers tightened around my glass. My whole body screamed to turn, to push him away, to pull him in. And I hated myself for not knowing which one I wanted more. The music shifted. Couples took the dance floor, laughter rising with every spin and dip. My brother and his bride glowed in the center, a picture of joy. Around them, love unfolded in countless small ways, hands clasping, cheeks brushing, hearts beating in sync. And then Ryan extended his hand. Dance with me. I almost laughed. Have you lost your mind? Probably, he said, that maddening grin tugging at his lips. But I know you still remember. Remember what? I snapped. His voice softened, the grin fading. That night in New York. Our last night. I froze, because I did remember. Every detail. Every kiss that felt like forever, and every word we never said because forever scared us both. Ryan, just one dance, he said. No one has to know. And against every instinct, every wall I'd built, I let him lead me to the floor. It was dangerous being that close. His hand pressed against the small of my back, guiding me through the music like he had been waiting years for this moment. My body betrayed me, falling into rhythm with his, like no time had passed. See, he murmured, still easy. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that nothing about this was easy, but my throat was thick with the weight of his closeness. "Why are you here, Ryan?" I finally asked, my voice cracking. He met my eyes, raw and unguarded. "Because I couldn't stay away. Because leaving you was the worst mistake I ever made." My breath caught. The world around us blurred, music, laughter, clinking glasses, all fading into the thud of my heart and the heat of his hand. "Then why did you?" I demanded, pain bleeding into the words. Ryan's jaw tightened. His gaze faltered. "Because I was scared. Because I loved you too much, and it terrified me. And I thought if I left first, I wouldn't have to watch you leave me." The music swelled, and my chest cracked wide open. Because for the first time, I heard the truth behind the silence. But love wasn't a fairy tale, not for us. The dance ended, applause rising around us for reasons that had nothing to do with us. I stepped back, shaking, my walls rebuilding faster than my heart could keep up. "Don't say things like that," I whispered. "Why not?" "Because I can't survive losing you twice." Ryan's face crumpled, and in that moment, I saw him, not the cocky smirk, not the stubborn pride, but the boy who once whispered his dreams against my skin in the dark. The boy who had loved me enough to break both our hearts. And before I could stop myself, I pressed my forehead against his. Just for a second. Just enough to remember what it felt like to be whole. "Drew," he breathed, his hand trembling against mine. But I pulled away. I had to. Hours later, when the party spilled into the night and laughter echoed down the halls, I found myself outside, staring at the stars. My chest ached like a wound I couldn't stitch. "Running again?" Ryan's voice came from behind me. I didn't turn. "Maybe." Silence stretched between us, heavy and fragile. Then footsteps approached, stopping just close enough that I felt the warmth of him at my back. "I'm not leaving this time," he said quietly. "Not unless you tell me to." I closed my eyes, tears burning hot, because the truth was, I didn't want him to leave. Not now. Not ever. But forgiveness is a battlefield, and I wasn't sure if either of us was ready to survive it. That was the second time that night I realized, weddings aren't just about vows. Sometimes, they're about the ghosts that show up uninvited, dressed in tuxedos, asking for one more chance. And Ryan Bennett was my ghost. The air outside was cooler than I expected, carrying the faint scent of grass and late summer roses from the garden. I gripped the railing of the porch, my knuckles white. Inside, the music pulsed with joy, voices rose in celebration. But out here, everything felt too quiet, too raw. Ryan lingered just behind me, his footsteps measured, hesitant. It was strange, he had always been the one to stride in like he owned the room. But now he hovered, like he was afraid that one wrong move would shatter me. "Drew," he said finally, my name fragile in his voice. I didn't turn. If I looked at him, if I saw his face, God, I might crumble. "Why are you still here?" "Because I told you," he said softly. "I'm not leaving again." I laughed bitterly, the sound breaking in the night air. "You already did. Twice." He flinched at that, and I hated myself for the satisfaction I felt. I wanted him to hurt at least half as much as I had. "I know," he whispered, "and I've regretted it every single day since." The silence stretched. The music inside swelled and shifted into something slow, romantic. I closed my eyes, letting the sound of it wash over me like salt in a wound. "You don't get to just show up at my brother's wedding and act like none of it happened," I snapped, turning finally to face him. The words tumbled out, sharp and jagged. "You left, Ryan. You chose to walk away. You don't get to come back 2 years later and pretend we can just dance our way into a second chance." His eyes met mine, steady, unflinching. "I'm not pretending." The honesty in his voice nearly broke me. "Then what are you doing?" I demanded, my chest heaving. "I'm fighting," he said. His jaw tightened, his hands fisting in his pockets as if he didn't trust himself to reach for me. "For once in my life, I'm not running. I'm standing here, telling you I love you, that I never stopped." The words hit me like a storm, tearing through everything I had built to keep him out. My heart wanted to believe it, to throw itself into his arms and finally rest. But my head, the part of me still bleeding from his absence, refused to let go. "Love isn't enough," I whispered. "Not if you can't stay." He stepped closer then, so close I could feel the heat radiating off him. "Then tell me to leave," he challenged, his voice trembling. "Tell me you don't want me, that you never think about me, that you never wake up at night and remember how it felt when it was just us." I swallowed hard, my throat tight, because the truth was I couldn't. "I can't," I admitted, the words ripping out of me like a confession. His eyes softened, filling with something I hadn't seen in him for so long, hope. "Then stop fighting me," he whispered. "I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But years of pain don't dissolve in a single night, not even under fairy lights and wedding music." "I don't trust you," I said finally. Ryan nodded slowly, as if he expected it. "Then let me earn it." The door behind us swung open, laughter spilling into the night. Mark stumbled out, his new wife on his arm, both of them glowing and drunk on happiness. "Drew," Mark called, his voice booming. "There you are. What are you doing out here?" I forced a smile, shoving everything down. "Just needed some air." Mark squinted between us, his grin widening. "Air, huh? Looks more like you're hiding from the party with my other best man." He clapped Ryan on the back. "Glad you two are finally catching up." "Yeah," Ryan said, his eyes never leaving mine. "Me too." Back inside, the night blurred into dancing, laughter, and the kind of reckless joy that only weddings seem to summon. I tried to lose myself in it, but everywhere I turned, Ryan was there, his eyes across the room, his voice too close in my ear when we passed by each other, his hand brushing mine when we both reached for a glass. Every touch, every glance felt like a spark, and I was terrified because I knew how easily sparks turned into fires. Later, when the crowd had thinned and the music softened, I found myself alone on the dance floor, swaying to a song I didn't recognize. And then Ryan was there, stepping into my orbit like he belonged. "You're not supposed to be here," I muttered, though I didn't step away. "Neither are you," he said, smiling faintly. "But here we are." His hand found mine, tentative but firm, and this time I didn't pull away. We danced, slow and quiet, the world shrinking to just the two of us. His eyes searched mine, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen before. And for the first time, I let myself admit the truth. I wasn't angry because I didn't love him. I was angry because I still did. "Tell me this isn't real," he whispered. I shook my head, my throat too tight for words. "But reality has a cruel way of reminding you it's there." A voice called my name, mother's, sharp and disapproving. We broke apart instantly, guilt flooding me even though we hadn't done anything wrong. Her eyes darted between us, suspicion clear. "Drew," she said firmly, "your brother and his wife are about to leave. Come inside." I nodded quickly, my heart pounding. "I'll be right there." Her gaze lingered a moment too long on Ryan before she turned and walked away. And just like that, the fragile bubble we had built burst. I pulled back, my chest aching. This can't happen. Not here. Ryan's eyes darkened, pain flashing across his face. "Drew." But I was already moving, slipping away before he could stop me. That night, back in my childhood bedroom, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The echoes of the wedding still rang in my ears, but louder than any of it was Ryan's voice, his words circling like ghosts. "I love you." I never stopped. I pressed my palms to my eyes, fighting back tears, because no matter how much I tried to deny it, the truth was carved into me. I still loved him too, and I didn't know if that was salvation or my undoing. By morning, I knew one thing: avoiding him wasn't going to work. Because some stories refuse to stay buried, no matter how much you try to silence them. And Ryan Bennett was my unfinished story. Morning broke with the weight of unfinished words pressing against my chest. Sleep had been impossible every time I closed my eyes. I saw Ryan, his confession, his eyes, the way his hand felt against mine when I let myself dance with him like nothing else existed. By sunrise, the house was quiet, filled only with the soft snores of relatives sleeping off champagne. I slipped outside, desperate for air. The lawn was still damp with dew, the world washed clean by night. And there he was. Ryan stood at the end of the driveway, his jacket slung over his shoulder, his tie undone. He looked like he hadn't slept either. When he saw me, his lips parted, as though he'd been waiting for this moment for me. "You always run to the sunrise when you can't sleep," he said softly. The familiarity in his voice cut me open. Because he was right. He remembered. "And you always find me," I whispered back. We stood in silence for a long moment, the weight of 2 years pressing down on us. Finally, I found my voice. "Why now, Ryan? Why after everything?" He swallowed hard, his throat working. "Because I realized I couldn't keep pretending. I tried to build a life without you, Drew, but it was like trying to breathe without air. I came back because I'd rather fight with you every day than spend one more year without you." My chest ached. God, how I wanted to believe him, but the wound he'd left still burned. "You broke me," I said, my voice shaking. "You left when I needed you most. You made me believe I wasn't enough." Ryan's eyes shone with unshed tears. "You were always enough. I was the one who wasn't. I was terrified of how much I loved you. I thought if I stayed, you'd see all the ways I would fail you. So I left before you could confirm it." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Do you even understand what it did to me?" "Yes," he whispered. "Because it did the same to me. The dam broke. My tears fell, hot and furious, and before I could stop myself, I shoved him lightly in the chest. "Damn you, Ryan. Damn you for coming back. For making me feel this all over again." He caught my hand, holding it tight against his heart. "Then hate me. Be angry. Yell at me every day if you need to. Just don't shut me out again. Don't let this be the end of us." His chest rose and fell beneath my palm, his heartbeat wild and frantic. And I realized wasn't just asking for forgiveness. He was offering himself raw and terrified, in a way he never had before. Something inside me cracked. Or maybe it healed. I didn't know which. All I knew was that I stepped forward, closing the last inch between us, and pressed my forehead to his. "I don't want to lose you again," I whispered. His breath hitched. "Then don't." And then finally I kissed him. It wasn't soft, not at first. It was messy, desperate, 2 years of pain and longing colliding in a storm. His hands gripped my face, mine fisted in his shirt. It was anger, love, grief, and hope tangled together, breaking us apart only to remake us whole. When we pulled back, gasping, his forehead rested against mine. "I love you," he said, voice ragged. "God, Drew, I love you so damn much." I closed my eyes, letting the words settle into the cracks inside me. "I love you too." I never stopped. The sun climbed higher, painting the sky in gold. Around us, the world woke up slowly, birds chirping, leaves rustling, the distant hum of a car. But in that moment, it felt like the universe paused, holding its breath just for us. Ryan brushed his thumb across my cheek, wiping away a tear. "So what now?" I laughed softly, shaky. Now we start over. But this time, no running." His smile was small but real, the kind that lit up his entire face. "Deal." When we walked back inside together, hand in hand, the remnants of the wedding were everywhere, flowers wilting in vases, half-empty glasses, streamers clinging to chairs. Mark and his new wife sat at the kitchen table, still glowing even in their exhaustion. Mark's eyes flicked to our joined hands, then back to my face. For a moment, I braced for questions, for judgment. But instead, he just smiled softly. "Took you long enough," he said. I froze. "What?" He shrugged. "I've seen the way you look at each other. For years. Everyone else probably has too. I'm just glad you're finally done pretending." Ryan laughed under his breath, squeezing my hand tighter. I looked at my brother, gratitude swelling in my chest, and realized maybe love doesn't always need permission. But having acceptance sure as hell helps. That afternoon, when the house emptied and silence finally settled, Ryan and I sat together on the porch steps. The air was warm, the world calm. He leaned against me, our shoulders pressed close. "For the first time in a long time," he said quietly, "I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." I tilted my head against his. "Me too." And as the sun dipped low, I realized that maybe love isn't about never breaking. Maybe it's about choosing each other, even when you've already been broken. Maybe it's about finding your way back, even when you thought the story was over. Because sometimes, the real vows aren't spoken at the altar. They're whispered in the quiet after the storm. And ours began right there, two best men, one wedding, and a love we were finally brave enough to claim. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.